Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And we're going to talk about maximum wokeness.
I'm just like, you don't even have to be canceled anymore. They're just going to cancel themselves.
Everybody's canceling themselves. Yeah, I saw this today on Reclaim the Net. And this is about an author who wanted to pull the plug on his book because he thought one of the drawings in the book was a racial stereotype. The irony in this being that the author is a white dude and his publisher is an Asian woman, and the Asian woman said, no, this is totally fine. We're not pulling the plug on the book, and he's having a mini meltdown.
Right, because they won't pull the book so he can cancel himself. And you want to think this is crazy and nuts, but we actually know people who have done this and personally know them.
Yeah, we'll talk about this. Before we get into it, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. I haven't asked you for a while. We're over 150,000.
Yes, we are. Let's hit for 200 now. Woo!
Going for 200. And yeah, there's precedent for this. This isn't the first time this has happened. It's been a while, but last year there was a controversy about an author who canceled her. Well, she basically got canceled by Twitter.
So that's different. She got canceled.
She self-canceled because of pushback.
She caved to the mob. That's not the same thing.
Yeah, so
that happens all the time.
Yeah, she canceled her own book. Canceled the publication of her book following a flood of online criticism from readers over her depiction of race and slavery in a fictional setting, I guess. That was one. That was one person. Then, not to be outdone, another author did it a couple months later. An upcoming YA novel, Ember Days, canceled by the author. I remember this one.
I do remember this.
Yeah, so this happened too. So this was a thing. In YA circles, they basically were pressuring people to cancel their own books. Now, the difference between these books and this guy's book is this book is already for sale. Mm-hmm. The books that they wanted to cancel, they already had a deal for, and they decided to pull a plug on.
I'm sorry. Okay, first of all, it is really hard to get a deal. It's really hard to get a publishing deal, and the companies had no problem with it. And the fact that it mattered, they had to fold, and well, they chose to, but they were told they had to be canceling it or else. Is ridiculous. They had to fight for that deal to begin with, and then they're just thrown away like nothing. And then meanwhile, there's people who really would have followed through and want the deal, and they don't get the deal. So that these little babies on Twitter can dictate and, whine about it and everything else.
Well, this guy was a self-canceler. He's self-canceled.
This does happen. We know somebody who did this.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. After we read some of this, we'll talk about that. We do, and this might explain kind of what's going on in comics, too. So this author campaigns to cancel his own book. It says it's racist. The Asian American publisher says it isn't. So they're talking about how Canada is pretty prone to woke culture. A children's book author, Adam Pottle, went all the way. That sounds like a children's book author. Went all the way to declare his own book as racist and sabotage his own work because he thought illustrations published in the book, the most awesome character in the world, did not comply with the latest norms around wokeism.
But that changes daily.
It does. That's the thing. What's acceptable today, a year from now, could be worthy of getting you canceled.
And I want to point out, too, the people that usually whine about this shit are usually a bunch of white women.
Yeah.
I'm saying this as a white woman.
You can say that.
Usually a bunch of white women yelling and screaming about something. We saw it before with cultural appropriation about like wearing certain outfits or whatever. I know the one little girl wanted to have a geisha birthday party. And so they did. I'm more concerned about the fact that, when you know what geisha, bringing a child, that probably wasn't the smartest thing. But she really made sure, her mom made sure they researched it and made sure they were accurate in the depictions and they were, sensitive about it. And they had a flippin' meltdown. And then people that were actually Japanese said, well, we consider it a compliment. The fact that you went to all that trouble, researched it, and you were so authentic is a compliment to us. It's not an insult.
Well, we're going to get to that because his publisher happens to be Asian.
I know.
And she happens to be like, no, this is fine, Adam. Calm the hell down.
Everybody's insulted by everything just because you are.
In a tweet, he called on Amazon to remove his book from their website, as Pals, Barnes & Noble, and others had already done at his behest. Excuse me, Amazon Books, please remove my book from your website. Other booksellers have done so, including Pals, Barnes & Noble, Indigo, and McNally Robinson. The book contains a racially insensitive illustration. I don't want it out there. I'm like, you should have thought about that.
And now I'm thinking, what is this racially insensitive illustration? I'm like, holy shit, it must be pretty bad.
When he first lays eyes on the illustrations in his book, published by Sarah Raycraft, Pottle said he felt sick. The illustration shows a girl wearing a yukata, a traditional Japanese garb, and her hair is styled along the same line.
Okay, and?
Okay.
I don't know what the problem is.
The publisher stood by the decision to include the illustrations that she saw as fun and celebratory of Japanese culture. So apparently he did not have say in the illustrations.
So wait, so the illustration done that was culturally accurate was insensitive.
To the white man, yes.
Yeah, okay.
To the white man.
Right.
The publisher stood by the decision to include the illustrations that she saw as fun and celebratory of Japanese culture rather than a bout of visual racism. Raycraft is an American woman with Asian heritage who has a successful history of publishing books. She said the implication that depicting a Japanese girl in a wheelchair wearing a yukata is racist is a problem because Japanese girls in wheelchairs can and do wear them. And like Philomena, we think this is beautiful.
Right. So you're like so you have a woman who's represented by the character and you're telling her that it's racist.
You're telling the Asian woman that the depiction of the Asian girl in the book that she published is yes. You as a white man are telling this Asian woman that yes.
Right, just like that. Remember that meltdown they had over the woman wearing the Chinese, I forget what it's called, the dress, and people had a fit about it, and people that were from China, they actually commented and said, no, we weren't offended. We thought it was kind of cool. You know, I'm just like, it's like that.
So Pottle appeared more than happy to shoot himself in the foot and plead for booksellers and readers to ignore his work. Raycraft, the publisher, listened and has stopped selling and promoting the book, although it has not been pulled, probably as it would represent admission that the visual content and the intent behind it had been racist. The story itself deals with what's described as a triumph of beautiful, breathtaking imagination for a deaf girl, Philomena, but apparently neither Pottle nor his character are quite capable of extending all of this extraordinarily functional imagination to the girl wearing some Japanese clothes. Pottle also seems worried that he might be called out for, well, I think that's what it is.
That's the whole thing is. He's canceling himself, so make sure he signals first, guys. This is really dumb. And the thing is, because don't you know that, like they said, there are girls that are wheelchairs or that are deaf or whatever that are Japanese that wear these outfits. So why is that insensitive? It's accurate. You can't be culturally accurate or you're insensitive.
I don't want people to get the idea this is something I support. It makes me uncomfortable. So he did not have a say in the...
Which does happen if you have a deal with somebody, but that's Amazon. So, but no, he had a publisher because it was through.
Yeah, but again, Asian woman making the call that this is not racially insensitive. White man deciding that
but
he's going to be.
Who's the one that's racially insensitive here?
But I do think he's so afraid of being canceled.
That's the whole thing is. It's dumb.
It is that space, the publishing space. I mean, you want to talk about. We talk about comics and how woke comics have become. I personally think, and I've said this before, and some people, they didn't want to listen, but I'm telling you, it's because we got the New York publishing scene intermingled with comic books. And a lot of people working in comic books right now are represented by agents that also represent like YA graphic, novelists, graphic novelists, whatever. And it's that sensibility is creeping in the comics. So the reason that we see a lot of the craziness in, even at Marvel and DC is a lot of these people have a connection to the publishing world, which has gone batshit crazy.
See, I'm looking at this and I don't even see how this is bad. I just don't see it.
I don't know.
But we were saying that we actually know people. Okay, so we know it's one person and we're not going to name names. They know who they are. And they had a comic for years, and it wasn't a very popular comic. I don't care if they get pissed I said that because it's the truth. And it was very kind of hard to follow. But anyway, they went on for years, and they kind of did it. It was an imaginary cultures. They spent all kinds of time making cultures and words and all this shit. Imaginary culture. Wasn't even real. And they canceled themselves and they canceled their comic because they realized now that they were being insensitive and they didn't know enough about other kinds of people to write about them.
Yeah, basically it was a white comics creator creating a story about brown people of fantasy race. They weren't based on any real world, but because they were brown people, they canceled their own comic because I think Tumblr put the pressure on them to do so. Because as a white person, you're not allowed to write about brown people, even if they're completely fictitious.
But brown people are allowed to write about white people. That's okay. And, if we're canceling things because it's not representative, how come we keep changing all the redheads in media and no one's canceling that? It's insulting to me as a redhead. I'm actually a redhead. I'm insulted they keep changing the characters for no damn good reason, but no one's canceling them.
Yeah. It's so weird. It's like we've gone from cancel culture, and this is what's going on in comics too. We've gone from cancel culture to, over in the publishing scene, self-cancel culture. Basically, you have to cancel yourself because you should know what your transgressions are. And it's kind of like a kid putting themselves in the corner or fetching the paddle for their parents.
But what was funny to me was, if you don't put other characters in it, you're in trouble because you're not diverse enough. And how very dare you're very myopic. You're not putting characters of different races, genders, identities in there. You're not being diverse enough. How very dare you? But if you do go and do that, you're canceled anyway, because how dare you write characters that aren't like you and you know nothing about them. You cannot win. So just do what the hell you want.
So that's just it. You can't win. It's a no-win, because again, what you say today might be perfectly acceptable. 1 year from now, it will be on the naughty list, and they will pull up your tweets and they'll cancel you unless you do it yourself first. It's kind of like taking the suicide pill. They give the soldiers the suicide pills.
Right.
So you wouldn't be tortured. You're like, I'm going to be tortured, and it's better to just freaking keel over than it is to be tortured. So I'm going to pop that pill in my mouth.
What? By doing that, you're dead. So you're not like, not just that. I mean, here, you cancel yourself in this book. Do you think you're going to get other books? Do you think the publishers are going to go with you when they've put all this money and stuff behind you, and then you turn around and did that?
No.
No, you're not doing yourself any favors.
For what reason? What, Twitter upvotes, the likes?
Yeah.
I mean, for what reason? You're back.
Fuck Twitter. Sorry, Mom.
There you go. Just, tell Twitter to go stay off of Twitter. They came for Chuck Wendig. Chuck Wendig, who went on some got himself fired for going on a big tirade against Republicans as a representative of Lucasfilm. Mm-hmm. They went after him too.
Yeah.
Like the publishing scene.
It's never enough.
It's never enough. The publishing scene, especially, whether it's comics or the YA novels or whatever, the New York publishing scene is, I would say in some ways, more brutal than Hollywood even. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just, and we know we were in that scene.
Basically is to get these people, mostly white women, in as the people that the voices, because I'm a minority. It's to get them to be, they're the voices. They're going to cancel anyone in their way, even if they agree with them, to make sure it's their voices represented. You can't write about these characters unless you are these characters. At that point, what's the point of imagination? But also, it doesn't work in reverse if you're talking about men or white people or whatever. That doesn't matter. Any race or whatever can write those people, but you can't write anybody else. It's just a bunch of bullshit to get themselves elevated.
Well, that's just it.
To cheat their way up. That's what it is.
If the motivation was pure, the motivation's not pure. This is basically about getting people to cancel themselves to take them out of the running, because it is hard to get a publishing deal. There are very
That's
few.
What I'm saying. It's really hard.
Yeah, very few spaces available.
Especially for pros. There's a lot more pros people open, but there's a lot more competition.
Yeah. So, of course, you want to kind of nuke the competition. So rather than you having to do it yourself, because that's a lot of work, you just make these people feel horribly guilty, and they just do it themselves.
Yeah, like, boy, doesn't he look tired?
Doesn't he look tired?
All these people are going to get that reference, but you got it. Huh?
And white.
Yeah, I was like, if you get it, wink, wink. But yeah, it's stupid.
Yeah, so we're going to wrap this one up.
Yeah.
Okay, so please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. We'll talk to you later.
Bye.